I think you can't have it both ways. I think in a matter as serious as this, where there's a shooter on the loose, right, and no one can be specific as to where he is, the general public should be concerned about this shooter, a person who still has a concealed weapon permit, and for all we know, may still have a weapon.
That's Daryl Parks, one of the attorneys for Trayvon Martin's family, upon learning today that George Zimmerman's lawyers quit the case and they don't know what state or what country George Zimmerman is in. But we know George Zimmerman's new website had a posting at 1:30 Eastern Time this afternoon saying, "I am attempting to respond to each and every one of my supporters personally. The support has been overwhelming in volume and strength. I thank you all and ask that you permit me the time to respond to each one of you personally. Once again, thank you sincerely, George Zimmerman." That is the same website that George Zimmerman posted this picture of the words "Long Live Zimmerman" spray painted onto the Black Cultural Center on the campus of The Ohio State University in Columbus. That photograph was removed from Zimmerman's website, as we just mentioned, within the last 24 hours. Joining me now, Kendall Coffey, former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, and Jonathan Capehart, Washington Post opinion writer and MSNBC analyst. Kendall Coffey, I give up. These are the craziest, strangest lawyers I've ever seen handling any case, putting themselves out there publicly, asserting facts about the case without ever having met their client, and then having to tell the world today, we have no idea where he is, just at the moment where the special prosecutor has said, within about 70 hours from now, I will be making what is probably a conclusive announcement in this case. I've never seen anything like this with lawyers.
Well, it's certainly one of the most remarkable press conferences we've ever seen any defense lawyers provide. I can't help but be a little sympathetic because this is such an overwhelming case from a media standpoint. These kind of cases take on a life of their own. The press conference took on a life of its own. But at the end of the day, they didn't need to say anything about the reasons why they were withdrawing, and they certainly didn't need to announce to the world that they didn't have any idea where their client was, because what's coming across is a picture of somebody who's in hiding, a picture of someone who's acting desperately, certainly erratically, and that kind of behavior, frankly, is more consistent with a person who's guilty rather than a person who's innocent. All bad news for George Zimmerman today.
Jonathan Capehart, one of these incompetent lawyers, said that if you're looking for him, look far beyond Florida. And, you know, look, his mother is from Peru. I think, Kendall, you'll confirm that when you're looking for people who are flight risks, you look to places where they have potential connective tissue of some sort, especially foreign countries that might be able to take care of them. Jonathan, this just can't get crazier, and for it to be coming, as we seem to be now, about 70 hours or less away from the special prosecutor making her announcement on her findings, right. It just seems like it just couldn't be crazier tonight.
Right. Well, from the very beginning, I've been writing in my pieces, you know, nothing makes sense about this case. Nothing. And today, those two lawyers stepped out to the microphone to prove me right once again that nothing about this case makes sense. Nothing. You have two lawyers. One, Craig Sonner, who volunteered himself to be George Zimmerman's legal advisor, and then this other guy comes in and you know, comes in on the case, and the two of them out doing media interviews, speaking on George Zimmerman's behalf, only to find out today that they haven't spoken to him since Sunday. They have not seen him face to face, to what I think it was Charles Blow in the previous segment talking about the fact that they've never sat down face to face with him, with George Zimmerman, to make a face to face judgment as to whether this is someone they should counsel and someone they ought to counsel. So I think in the next 72 hours, what is my hope? Is that we will get, if not answers to most of our questions, at least answers to some of the really important questions. One, does the Sanford Police Department have George Zimmerman's gun from that night? Where is George Zimmerman? And more importantly, and most importantly, I think for a lot of people, is there enough evidence for probable cause or whatever is needed to arrest George Zimmerman so that he and this case can be brought to a court of law and out of the court of public opinion so that he can be held accountable for killing an unarmed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin?
Kendall Coffey, one of the lawyers said today that he was so far away, wherever Zimmerman is, it's so far away that it would be impractical for them to have attempted to meet with him, given even the air travel that's available out of the Orlando airport. What does that mean to you when you hear a statement like that?
Well, again, a remarkable statement, a completely unnecessary statement, something that suggests that George Zimmerman is panicking. And what does that add up to other than somebody who thinks they're in a lot of trouble, which, of course, is going to be equated to guilt? It suggests that unless they have absolutely no idea and that they're guessing, just as you say, he's far away. Is he in Peru? We don't know that. And we're speculating just as much as I suppose his lawyers were speculating about his location. But the thing that's clear is that Angela Corey is now hearing that the person she's been studying, the person she's been trying to make a very difficult decision on, is taken off and is hiding. And if this case had been infinitesimally close, we know which way that would be tilting the decision-making process.
Kendall, this call to the prosecutor, which is very strange. I mean, just put yourself in that seat where you get the word, George Zimmerman's on the phone, would like to speak to you as the special prosecutor. How would you handle that?
Well, of course she did the right thing, which was not to speak to him, because at the time she got the call, she had every reason to believe he was represented by lawyers. So neither she nor any of the police agents were in a position to speak to Zimmerman. But I'd sure as heck want to do whatever I could, having received that call. If she doesn't know where his whereabouts are, that's something that they've got to try to track back on, because it's going to be a colossal question of the hour whenever she makes her announcement of her decision. If she doesn't know where he is as well, I suspect she does, even if his lawyers don't.
Let's listen to what Trayvon Martin's mother had to say about how she and the family are getting through this.
We appreciate the support of everybody that's showing us so much love and support. We appreciate the support as we're trying to be an example to remain calm and to let this case play out. Let the evidence be gathered and let them do a thorough investigation. And it's hard and it's difficult for us to remain calm, and we just ask the supporters to remain calm with us.
Jonathan Capehart, you've met her, you've met Trayvon's father, you've met this family at the Washington Post when they came to visit. They have maintained dignity throughout this, and
right.
as these kinds of developments occur, where we can just sit here and throw up our hands and go, wow, this is really crazy, it is quite striking to see the dignity that she's able to maintain. Right,
and from the very beginning, they've talked about how they want George Zimmerman arrested and held accountable. That's all they've asked for. That's all they've wanted. And they see, you know, through the rallies that they've attended and participated in, that this has galvanized a lot of people in this country to what's going on, both with them and getting justice for Trayvon Martin, but in the larger issues of racial profiling and what African Americans and African American men in particular have to deal with just to live their lives. And so for her to call for come and let's see what's happening and go through the process, it's in keeping with the sort of dignified stance that they've taken from the very beginning.
That'll have to be the last word in tonight's coverage of these shocking new developments in the case. Kendall Coffey, former Florida federal prosecutor, and Jonathan Capehart, Washington Post opinion writer and MSNBC analyst. Thank you both for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Coming up, the good news for Mitt Romney, Rick Santorum is out of the race. The bad news for Mitt Romney, George W. Bush is back, and that turned out to be really, really good news for President Obama today.